Yo, welcome to Sig Slayers, the signature show from the Staff Bros. I'm Mike, chilling with Chris.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to another show. We appreciate you tuning in. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy more comic book content.
Today is a special Sig Slayers. For the first time, we have the creative team from the Eisner-nominated series, Killadelphia, in the house.
Hell yes.
That's right, Rodney Barnes is back in the house. And somehow, some way, we have Jason Shawne Alexander with us as well.
Mike, are you serious? That's big time.
I mean, yeah, it is, man. It is big time. Rodney and Jason are here to chop it up about taking Blacula from the screen to the page. That's right, Blacula, the return of the king, is here. You don't want to miss this episode, Stash fam.
All hail to the king. Let's get started.
All right. Our next guest has been leading the scene in horror comics. Killadelphia is killing it, as well as the spinoff Nita Hall's Nightmare Blog. Here to talk about their latest project, Blacula, the return of the king. Ladies and gentlemen of Stashland, we bring to you, representing Zombie Love Studios, we have founder, writer, producer, and honorary Stash fam, Rodney Barnes, back with us.
Welcome, Rodney.
For the first time, a master visual storyteller. He's a fan favorite Spawn artist. But it seems with every issue of Killadelphia, he has taken his skills to new heights. He's the man visually responsible for the return of the king, Blacula, the talented but elusive Jason Shawne Alexander in the house.
Woo! Welcome, Jason. Thank you for being here, man.
Yeah,
Rodney.
That was a great intro. I feel like James Brown. I just need you to
That's the goal, right?
push me whenever I go out on stage someplace.
I love that, dog. I love that.
Get you to do my funeral for me.
Hey, man, I'm there. I'm there with you.
He was a writer. He did it.
I'll be your Flavor Flav, man. I'll be it, man.
I need it.
Was that over the top enough for you?
I don't, do I even need to be here? I'm good. This was awesome.
Well, let's get it started. Way back in 2020, when we first interviewed you, Rodney, you told us there was a chance that Blacula was returning, and here we are.
Yes.
But I'm curious. Tell us, Stats fam, what it took to acquire the rights to a property like Blacula. Like, how did you get all that business stuff sorted out so you can even do what you're doing?
Yeah, Alana Mayo, executive of Alana Mayo, was working. She was running Michael B. Jordan's company. I was writing a movie for them and New Regency, and she helped open the door to negotiating with MGM to get the rights. And MGM has other properties like the one that's over Chris's shoulder, Army of Darkness, as well, and some other things. I think James Bond and some other stuff that they license from time to time, but they hadn't done a Blacula book. And so I'd always wanted to do one, and I wanted to do one, love the movie, and as a kid, and two, wanted to do a vampire book that wasn't Killadelphia. So, and I also wanted to do something, if I was going to do a book from my company that was a vampire book that wasn't Killadelphia, something with some name recognition that might be able to, get some notoriety, had some, not so much just a big splash, but just had some name recognition within pop culture. So that's what started it all.
How does that shake out with Blacula being under the imprint of Zombie Love?
Man, I think I've got 5 years. I'd like to do 3 volumes of stories. And we'll see what happens after that. Obviously, you have volume 1, and then people like it, I'll keep doing it.
So, Jason, let's just start from the beginning. Explain your origins of being involved with the return of Blacula. So how did that all start? The project of, the graphic novel project of the return of the king.
He had started Zombie Love, and he really wanted to start just pushing his own vision and all of that, and asked me on to be art director and start grabbing the talent and for a lot of the books. So one of the books, it was literally just one of the projects. He was like, I'm going to get Black. The thing is like much like with everything that happened with Rodney, he says something outlandish, and he means it. And so even if it takes like a while, like when he and I first sat down, he'd never written comics. He literally was just from film, and we had met through other sources, and we sat down and had a burger someplace. And at that time, he was just like, I'm gonna write comics. I'm gonna write horror comics. I'm gonna write dramas. And I'm just like, okay, Boondocks, you know? And I'm not, Rodney probably sitting there, yeah, he's not gonna like that comment.
I love it.
But, and I was a fan, but like, I mean, when that man sets his mind into motion, and his will is to do a thing. 5 years later, we're Eisner nominated series together, and writing a ton of comics and starting his own label.
I remember we interviewed Rodney like almost 3 years ago, and he mentioned Blacula, and he said there may be a return, and we were like, what? And I'm like, the fact he even said Blacula? I haven't heard Blacula since I was a little kid. When did you guys start sketching out the ideas of getting the Blacula project moving on? Because that's a lot of projects, especially if you had Nita Hawes in the mix too.
You know what? It was. I knew I was going to be just a visual creator on Nita. I wasn't going to be the daily page artist. So I could do the cool concept designs of Nita and her brother and all the demons and things like that. Mm-hmm. And that stuff was fun, and I could kind of curate what Patrick Reynolds was starting with the artwork and all that kind of thing, which was fantastic. It was really him really finalizing and getting the rights, or getting from MGM, and then it became real. And then through a couple of different ideas, different directions, and inevitably he was just like, you should do this. And I was, I don't know if as a creator, we all kind of have our bucket lists.
Right.
My bucket list wasn't like that fortuitous. It wasn't Blacula. But on my bucket list, like I wanted to, you want to make your mark somewhere in pop culture, something that wasn't mine.
Right.
Whether it be, I think like for me, Dave McKeon kind of owns the Joker from his Arkham Asylum. I think one of my good friends, Kent Williams, I think his Wolverine is the quintessential Wolverine, from Meltdown, that kind of thing. I love making my own thing, like between MG Zone and Killadelphia and stuff like that. And I love kind of getting to play with Spawn, but I really wanted to put a signature on something pop culture. And when he said Blacula, like I did have like the film roommate in Nashville, Tennessee, and he just went through all of them. He showed us both Blaculas, and then we went on the Rudy Ray Moore trip and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, it was meant to be, a comedy. It was meant to be exploitative, and all of a sudden, like, it's a legit, significant movie.
Exactly.
And in revisiting it, I mean, I recommend everyone, like, you don't need to revisit it in order to enjoy the graphic novel. I think we cover that beautifully. Rodney you can tell Rodney's been wanting to do this for a long time. Like he synced this up just wonderfully. He not only made a sequel that references the previous, but then moves the story forward. It's brilliant. It's absolutely, it's genius. And really anything Rodney writes, I want to draw.
Rodney, how did you come to the decision of making Jason the penciler for The Return of the King?
He's got naked pictures of me someplace. Jason. It's like a virus inside of me that just I can't cure. Penicillin won't solve it. Yeah, I hate to give him compliments, but I love Jason's work. He was hot to the idea, and I wanted to take, and I've always wanted the idea of Blacula to be more sophisticated than I think he was treated sometimes in the films. Like, there's this idea sometimes that you take characters of color and you sort of stick them in the hood, and that's where they're sort of relegated to. And I don't have a problem necessarily. That's an aspect of our culture, but there are also other aspects as well. Whereas Dracula's in Transylvania in a castle on a hill in, Eastern Europe, I wanted to bring Prince Mamuwalde, he's royalty, and I wanted to give him a certain, and William Marshall, who played him, had Othello in his background, and I wanted to give him a certain degree of elegance to how, he sort of was treated like a big-time monster. If he was going to be within the pantheon of all the other monsters, I wanted him to be able to talk to Satan, to be able to walk through hell, to be able to just sort of be treated as the big-time guy that he is in my book. So that was sort of the goal, to sort of blend the world that he was introduced in, but also acknowledge what I believe he is intrinsically as a character.
When did you actually start getting scripts and start sketching out pages?
21.
21?
Okay.
21 at the end, the middle of 21 started it, and then we were in full production for the end of 21 and throughout a good chunk of 22.
Okay.
Follow-up question. So what are the actual duties of the art director at Zombie Love Studios?
Well, Jay, to annoy me, that's in life. Jason is not just for Killadelphia, for Blacula, but for all of the books that we have coming. He sort of oversees all of the art duties. He chooses artists. He deals with the book designers. He deals with the size, the shapes, the designs, all of how the book looks. I think the book has a certain, the book itself, I think, has a certain degree of elegance to it. It's not just your typical book. And we sort of wanted that too, just as an idea as a company to not just I can't compete with the big two. I can't compete with Image or Boom or any of the other great companies that are out there. I sort of have to say, all right, if I'm going to make a few books a year, you got to put everything into those books to make them stand out, because I don't have quantity on my side. And if I'm writing them, I certainly have to have the best of the best that you're putting into them. So that's sort of what he does. I mean, he adds everything from that side of it into the crafting of a book.
Well, Rodney, with your resume in film and television, you gave us a little bit about the beginnings and how you were able to use Blacula. But why did you decide to use comics as the medium to bring back Blacula first?
I felt like I knew the company. I wanted to do mystery and horror and sci-fi. I wanted to bring that to sort of I wanted a company to sort of embody that. I mean, you've got within the big two and appendages of that, like Milestone, if you have diverse storytelling, you already kind of have a lot of superheroes already that are there. I'm doing a couple of books at, the big two that are superhero themed. So, you're kind of superheroed out when you come to that. It's nothing really new under the sun, although I may be doing one indie book that's might be considered new. But when it came to my company, I sort of wanted to do something I felt was original and go down a lane that there are other companies that do this kind of thing, but I wanted to tell the types of stories that were unique to me and my voice and what I felt was what I dig.
Jason, with your skill set, man, it seems like you do anything in the world of art.
Yeah.
Why did you choose comic book as like your forte medium, like your bread and butter? You know what I mean?
I did for a while really teeter on fine art as bread and butter for a couple of years, and then for a couple of years I kind of just did short stories or a couple of things in comics. It wasn't until I started doing Empty Zone again through Image that I realized when I started doing conventions again that a lot of people had thought I quit or thought I retired. So I was like, no.
Obviously, you had a beginning as an artist before you became professional. Yeah. But when did you decide to, take a stab at drawing comics?
It was McFarlane. It was, my older brother bought comics, but he bought the comics from the 80s, the late 80s, which I still found a bit boring. And then I started seeing Todd McFarlane's work, and then I started seeing Amazing Spider-Man, and I was like, this blows my mind. This makes me want to draw comics. I've always, since the 3rd grade, I would always run to the library and check out how to draw comics the Marvel way.
Nice, okay.
That was my go-to. I didn't even realize it was Buscema doing the drawings. And and then later I would find him in Wolverine and all this. I was like, why do I love this so much? I'm like, I was inundated. I was just drinking it up. And I was from the 3rd grade on. But I mean, long story short, I really, I wanted to do special effects through high school. I thought that was actually going to be my career jump. And then it was McFarlane and his work on Spider-Man. And I was like, oh man, like drawing comics is really cool. And then it was my exposure to The Crow. I mean, sometimes there's that one project or that's one instance. This was the book, and it was probably my first black and white. I don't know how. I probably just thought it looked cool, and I had my brother buy a copy because I was too young at the time. I was 16, and that was the time when they took that seriously, and it was up in the hype. Again, long story short, I fell in love. I was like, comics are it for me. even though I was kind of out, even though I was absolutely aping Todd McFarlane, my work started shifting drastically. I just started discovering Will Eisner, Cerebus, black and white independence became my thing, and there was so much emotion to it, and there was this, and then I fell in love with ink and then the drama, and there's part of me that's always been my own storyteller, and so I started in comics, self-publishing and writing and drawing my own stuff. It wasn't until in the early 2000s when I got Queen and Country, and that was the first time I'd worked with another writer. So I knew that no matter where I exhibited, what I directed, what I did, I was always going to draw comics on some level.
So you love that method of storytelling. You're addicted to that way of sharing a story visually. Love it. I love the way you described that, man. I love that. Okay, speaking of description, here's another one. I like this one. Total alley-oop here. You've been working with Rodney for a long time now, Jason. So if you could describe your experience working with Rodney with one word, what would it be?
No pressure.
Challenging.
As a writer, and a great writer you are, so I expect the perfect answer. Okay, being a writer, has to be perfect. Okay, what's the perfect word to describe working with Jason?
Pain. It's a lot like what Mr. T said, or Clubber Lang in Rocky 3. What's your prediction for the fight? Pain.
That's good enough for me, Rodney. Right?
Thank you. Because it's painful thinking of another word to top pain.
That's perfect. The Clubber Lang, I know exactly how that felt when you said Clubber Lang.
I could say there's a lot of other words I could sit back and try to find, but it'd all be negative.
You mentioned a little bit about what the goal for Blacula is, which is to create more graphic novels, because it seemed like Zombie Love is doing whole graphic novels versus floppies, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, but it begs the question, so I gotta throw it out there. Is there anything more than graphic novels or comics in store for Blacula?
I mean, always you're trying to take original IP and, see if it can live beyond that as far as TV and film. And I mean, it's what I do. That's my day job. So you're always trying to create that bridge from A to B. And I think other than Blacula, I don't have anything else licensed. Everything else is all original. So this is the only licensed property. The next book, Florence and Normandy, ideas with rapper Exhibit. It's a sci-fi alien attack story that begins on the corner of Florence and Normandy.
Nice. Let's go.
And that's finished. I got a ghost story. It takes place in a haunted mental asylum in Maryland. A couple of the Substack books will become print. Will go to print. Again, not to compete with anybody. I'm competing with myself to try to build better stories, build better books. This is more about books that you put on a shelf. This isn't about competing with anyone.
Technical question here, and I was really impressed with this. Obviously, we follow you on your Instagram, and we saw a process post, how you put some of your art together. And just off this one post I saw, you said that you pencil digitally, then you print on watercolor paper, scan it, and then you finish digitally. When did you start doing that method, and what are the advantages of doing it that way?
Now I only really do that method for covers.
Okay.
Specific covers. Really just ones that I want to own, or I want the traditional art to exist, where I think it's going to be, or one, I just think it's dope, or I think it's going to do well in the secondary market. That's what digital has done for me, which is speed. I'm the only way Blacula exists at the same time Killadelphia still comes out was speed and digital. It was my first digitally painted book. To answer your question initially, digital has been maybe the last 3 years.
Okay.
It could be 4. I found digital near the end of my run on Spawn.
Okay.
And near the, as a matter of fact, the only traditional art that exists of Killadelphia would be issue 1 and half of issue 2.
Really?
Wow.
And I went digital from that point forward.
Wow.
And it wasn't just a speed thing. It wasn't just a production thing. I've drawn comics for 20 years the same way, with nibs and paper and erasing and redrawing and resizing. And for me, this is just someone shows me a new tool that I can incorporate, and it's a new way to draw comics. And when I draw something great, but it's the wrong size, I can just move it. And I'm just so, and so I'm finding just my own artistic challenges and my own hurdles I'm trying to leap with digital. But that goes purely for my illustrative life. I still do private paintings. I still do, and it's the reason why I still keep a commissions list open.
Wow.
I still love working on paper, and I want to keep those muscles, Now paper for me can genuinely be about craft, and digital can be about production.
I love it. So Jason, speaking of Killadelphia, issue 28 just recently dropped. Killadelphia sparked a whole new line of comics, Zombie Love Studios. Can you please explain the process of producing titles across publishing lines as an independent imprint?
Rodney and I'll get all woo-woo and say it's because we share the same birthday. I think we're
really
similar person, and we share the same aesthetic. The way that he speaks, I see it. The way that I draw is how he saw it, and so us linking up as me with the kind of the visual outlet for him to kind of bring in talent was natural. I don't know, there's a certain branding that he's already done in his writing. He can take a simple story and still add emotional layers to it. It's just what he does. Like Blacula could have just been a visual free-for-all.
Right.
But no, you gotta Rodney that a little bit. He's gotta show these kids with totally different reactions to the reality of what's going on, and then show these layers of family and then society and all that. He's gonna do that while, mixing it up with some good throat slashing, and some good, that kind of thing. Yeah, since we started Killadelphia and we liked what we were doing, we started really liking working together. We had this kind of momentum. Then of course you get to that place where you're like, let's do this some more. And that's where Zombie Love and all that. Because he was also like, well, I'm tired of asking permission, because it's always going through some other level of hierarchy in printing. Though I'm thankful we also got Nita off the ground. And so Anita's been amazing to be a part of. But he just wanted to if he wanted to do a thing, he wanted to do a thing and right then. And so it made total sense that Zombie Love came into play. And I was honored when he asked me to come along with him to make sure the books look good.
Okay, I got to ask this question because you have like one of the most unique styles in all of comics. So I want to ask you, and you mentioned some names earlier, but who are some of your artistic influences that inspired you to make comics? So you can restate some of the names that you mentioned earlier, but I'm just curious, and I want the Stash fam to know where your head is at on that level.
I'm so grateful, even for especially for the time I wound up taking away from comics, because I have just as much of a fine art existence as I do in comics. And I think what brings a different sensibility to what I do is that world, is knowing how to see the figure differently beyond the scene and the character, but as a human, as a figure, that kind of a thing. So I think that's always played into, especially what I do now, and mix the two so much. I mean, yeah, originally, easily, it was Tom McFarlane that got me then to James O'Barr, that got me then to Chris Buccialo on Shade the Changing Man. And I just idolized that for a good amount of years. Then I fell in love with the horror guys, Bernie Wrightson and Kelly Jones.
Right.
I found Sam Keith. So then I just and so in comics and in fine art, I love it all. That's the hard part. I love Willem de Kooning as much as I love Mark Silvestri. In comics, always the horror voices are the things that kind of kept me coming back. Always loved the Wrightson inking. Kelly Jones stuff. And then, always with fine artists, there are current people like Jenny Seville, and then older people like Gustav Klimt and Egon Schiele. Visually, I think that's what every artist, every writer, every artist, they should love movies and books and other art and mix it all,
I got it. So you said longhand. So that means that you're actually hand writing your actual work, your script?
Wow.
Somewhere. There's got to be a pad.
That's pretty awesome.
Without falling out of the chair, which I did one time.
So Killadelphia #1 is somewhere on handwritten, the actual
text.
Away.
Oh
my God, that's gonna be crazy.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I do this, and then I take pictures of it with my phone, and I send it to Carlos, and then Carlos types it, and then he sends it back, and then I go through this maddening editing process until the script is done, and we continue until, on some scripts that are more dense, 20 versions until it's done.
Wow.
If I know the story, some of them will come together quicker than others. There's one that I think will surprise people, the end of this arc, for issue 30 of Killadelphia. The last page is going to surprise everybody. And I know writers probably say that, and Jason will like this when you're talking to him. He'll smile. He's going to make a face. But there's something really, 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 really big coming. Something outside of the world of Killadelphia. That's the only thing I can think. Something that's outside of the world of Killadelphia that's coming into the world of Killadelphia. But that's all I can really say.
Oh wow, you heard it here first.
Yep.
Definitely Stash fan pick up. You gotta pick up. You're slipping if you're not picking up Killadelphia, but definitely pick up Killadelphia 30. You heard it from the man.
30, all variants. Pick up all the variants.
It's a big deal. It's a really big deal.
That's
the biggest thing that happened in Killadelphia.
Wow. Oh wow.
Ooh.
Wow. Okay. But the longhand thing, that's killing me, because the collector in me want one of those damn pads of yours.
Exactly. I'm like, dang,
before the cleaner ladies do.
And I want to frame that. Let's go.
If you can see how fast I go through them and rip them and throw the page, there are times, and if I'm writing a movie or a TV show at the same time, they're literally like I'm looking over by the garbage can. There's literally like pages on top of pages.
I'm gonna sneak into your house, Rodney.
Wow. Wow.
Good luck with that one.
Going to some of your inspirations, we know that you're a huge Swamp Thing fan and you're a huge comic book collector. You write across multiple mediums, multiple genres across multiple mediums. And so I wanted to ask you, who inspired you to write comic books? Was it Len Wein?
I mean, I've always appreciated his work. To write them, I think probably the first book that made me want to write comic books was Miracle Man 14.
Was that Alan Moore?
That was Alan Moore. And there was something about somewhere around Miracle Man 14 and Swamp Thing Annual. I don't know what number it was, but it was down amongst the Dead Men, which I actually owned the last page to.
Nice.
And it was something about the writing of that whole arc. It'll make me, now I have to not write today and go read that whole thing again. But there was something about the pacing of it that was like the perfect horror comic for me. And it was beautiful. Like I would read it. I have this obsessive compulsive thing with pizza and with reading. And there's a thing where I will continuously, if I love it, go over it again and again and again and again. Same way around. There have been a handful of things over the course of my life that I felt were so perfect and had it moved me to a place of wanting to do something. Like they just sort of pull something. That was, as far as comic books, I've always loved them. You know, I was a huge Neil Adams fan, huge. Neil Adams, George Perez, Jim Starlin, Bernie Wrightson, probably about 10 other guys I'm not thinking of. Certainly early Frank Miller with Daredevil. You know, you're talking a very specific time in my life. Still stuff that I buy now like it's new. Like there'll be times when I'm bored where I'll sit on, when I'm trying to avoid working in Resistance, that I'll buy stuff on eBay just because it happened to pop up on my phone. All those things sort of pulled out an idealism and a romantic notion about writing that sometimes the business of writing doesn't always do, because the business is so fickle and you never know how a thing is going to turn out. Like sometimes you could be in a place where, you know, if I were to turn this desktop to the wall, you would see 100 projects on the wall. Well, 2 might happen, but all of them require attention. And you have to love all 100 in order for those 2 to maybe happen. And so that's difficult emotionally and practically to go down that road. Then when you say comic books, I'm pretty certain if an editor calls and says, hey, we want you to do a 4-issue, blah, 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 pretty good shot that's going to happen. And certainly if you have your own company and you're willing to mortgage your children's futures to make Blacula, I'm pretty certain that's going to happen. And you can feel pretty good about it. And you get to open an email one day, or Jason's going to text a picture and, you know, he's happy about it and his enthusiasm and I'm enthusiastic. And you can start off your day pretty good rather than having a producer cuss you out and say this page sucks.
Wow.
The script sucks. Yeah.
Wanted to continue talking about your art. We recently found out that you gifted Rodney the cover of issue 1 of Killadelphia. Can you please let us know what that piece means to you? And why did you feel that Rodney needed to have it?
We all make mistakes. You can't really take them back. So
I love it.
Gift. So
So you're saying you promised it to him and then had to follow through?
There was a really great moment where we had sold out. I think we had sold out of the first issue and maybe the second. And it was a great experience for me, and I knew it was a first for him, and so it just kind of felt all right, right at that moment. It was either that or his birthday. I could just be making the stuff up, but I gave it to him.
I love how you're struggling to say something nice about him. I love it. I love the struggle. Okay, gentlemen, we invited you on Sig Slayers because we believe the Stats Bros have the most signed books from the Zombie Love Studios catalog. Damn near every Killadelphia issue, as well as Nita Hall's issues, double signed by the both of you. We wanted to savor this moment with a comic book montage real quick. Stash fam, how many of y'all have this many books blessed by Rodney Barnes and Jason Shawne Alexander? We'll wait, but we're going to keep going.
Nobody.
Rodney and Jason, in case you didn't know, we're living in an ongoing stash war, and the goal is to never be a casualty. All right, I'm done flexing. Chris, take us away, man.
All right, Rodney, back to reality. You know, we're huge comic fans. You're huge comic fans. What's the last comic that you actually enjoyed reading?
Monarch #1 on sale February 8th. I think I'm gonna say Monarch. I think I like the way that came out. I think this book, Kolchak Night Stalker,
yes, sir.
I contributed to the anthology. I got my comps the other day, and I actually read this and really happy with it. And we're both on a preliminary list for a Bram Stoker Award, Volume 4 of Killadelphia, and this 50th anniversary anthology.
Silvestri's Deadly Duo has been blowing my mind. I saw in some documentary a while back from him that said that he thought he was actually currently doing the best work of his career. And at that point, like, nobody knew what he was talking about. Absolutely. Like, he's on a different level with this work. I say that also because it's got a long number. It makes me happy because it means I can collect something other than Saga.
Right? Saga. Yeah, Saga's badass too, though. Love
Saga just came back too. Saga just came back.
And a couple of those One Fine Day issues I thought were stellar. There was one by Matteo Scalera did the art.
We saw Silvestri when he was out in North Hollywood at Collector's Paradise for that Deadly Duo. And you signed your cover for me over at Earth 2.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm happy about that. Roddy, one of the hardest working men in show business. You deserve, my man, after a hard day's work, someone to put a cape on your back like James Brown.
Yep.
Blacula, Killadelphia. I mean, you got Blacula, Killadelphia, The Mandalorian, Tales from the Crypt with Snoop Dogg, Florence and Normandy with Exhibit. Winning Time Season 2 is almost upon us. And then recently we got Jack Johnson with Marshall Ali, which, let me take a breath, which of your upcoming projects would you like the Stats fan to know about the most?
I mean, like I said, I love them all. I think Jack Johnson deserves some love only because I haven't talked about him very much other than the Deadline thing that came out. Very excited to be even associated with the great Mahershala Ali. And I've always loved and appreciated Jack Johnson. Always been I'm a huge boxing fan, so he's always been on the radar of, this guy who was Muhammad Ali before Muhammad Ali in a time where being that type of polarizing figure was really dangerous. It was tough for Muhammad Ali, but it was really tough back then.
Right.
There was no real infrastructure and you're coming out of slavery. And to be able to have a shot at getting that story on HBO with a top flight cast and is truly an honor.
So the Jack Johnson, that's something that you're spearheading. That's
yes.
Oh,
wow, nice.
That's why they put your picture. Anytime they put your picture in there, that means you're spearheading. If your picture isn't there, that means you're just a guy. But if your picture's there, that's why they put your picture next to the guy. They don't just put your picture next to the guy if you're not going to get the picture.
Big time, Rodney.
Yeah,
Rodney's the guy. He's the guy with the picture. Besides Blacula, Jason, is there an upcoming project that you want the Stats Fund to know about? Is there an artist within the Zombie Love Studios camp that you would like to shout out? Any of the above?
Oh my God, they're all killing it. Chris Mitten used to be on our werewolf story, and he was doing a stellar job. Man House does Rodney's zombie story, 22 Rigor, and always Simon Gerdansky has been killing it on Nita and the guns,
Yes, the gun one.
Whatever his name is.
Yes.
A lot of titles. And what you're about to see come out from Florence and Normandy through Jonathan Wayshak is going to blow minds.
Okay.
The words of his career.
So that's the one Rodney's doing with Exhibit, right? The Florence.
Yes.
Yeah.
It looks amazing. I'm like, if this is the kind of thing I produce, as art director, I'm so happy being art director. Like, it is. John killed it. Like, it is. You're gonna dig it. You're really gonna dig it.
Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. You always have a home here. I know you don't get out a lot, but you always got a home here on the Stats Bros Network. Be sure to pick up Blacula, The Return of the King. Available everywhere books are sold, including your local comic book shop. So go there too. Support those LCS. Well, that's all for our show. If you like what you see, please subscribe and hit that like button. We are the Stats Bros. I'm Mike, speaking for Chris and the Zombie Love Studios crew. We are out. Peace!